And we're off. It is 3/14/2022, and we're talking with, or I'm talking with my big brother Bill about his grade school days and probably into middle school and high school, depending on the memories that come up. Do you have an earliest memory of perhaps grade school, a teacher's name or a kid's name or anything like that?
I do have some, and maybe if I back up to maybe really early school days, maybe that'll help get sort of a run at this because I am having difficulty knowing what a typical day was like, but I'll give it a shot.
Uh-huh.
But I'm gonna go back to what was probably in Iowa when uh, uh, when I went to. I think these memories are from the first time I went to school, and I don't think I attended kindergarten. I have no recollection.
Hmm.
I don't think I have a good recollection of kindergarten. Although these are like sort of fuzzy memories. I remember having a bath towel. What we needed to do was when we went to school was um, we had a nap time, and that seems more associated with kindergarten than it does first grade.
Hmm.
So this might be a kindergarten memory, but again, I'm not certain of it. But I recall we spread out this towel on the floor and um, and um, and have a sort of a quiet rest period. I don't remember that we fell asleep or anything like that. I just remember that bath towel that
Hmm.
we used. But this was during World War II, and I remember a small, I guess I would call it a vitamin pill, possibly, that we took with a little. I think it was a carton of milk. I remember milk being associated with it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's one of those round, say roughly pea or lima bean sized pills that was a sort of a gelatin outside. It was soft and squishy, and roughly the size of excuse me, the shape of a football. And I remember one time chewing on it and biting it, and I think it was cod liver oil, and it did not have a
Oh,
pleasant taste.
oh no.
Again, fuzzy memories. And
Yeah.
sometimes these memories are so fuzzy, you're not awfully sure whether you dreamt them or made them up or heard them, and you've incorporated it into something that feels like a real memory.
Yeah.
But there were also walking to school. I recall walking along a sidewalk, and it seemed like it'd be a full day because these absolutely giant maple leaves. I think they were the maple leaves were had turned brown,
Oh.
fallen on the sidewalk, and walking along and scuffing along through the leaves, making that rustly sound that the dry leaves would make.
Mm-hmm.
And as I think about it, as I thought about those that walking along and those leaves, how huge those leaves were. They were the size of oh gosh, like maybe a foot wide, the way
Hmm.
I was picturing it. And I came to the realization, and I think this might be true, that the reason those leaves looked so big was that I wasn't very big. I was pretty little.
Uh-huh.
uh, and so those leaves look just huge to me. And I
Oh.
don't think that the leaves have shrunk in size to the what maybe 6 inch, right? Maybe 6 7 inches, as big as a typical maple leaf might be
Uh-huh.
these days. But it was just a kind of a funny realization of how giant those leaves seem to me in retrospect.
Yeah. What and how old were you? What grade or how old do you think
This
you
would
were?
this probably would be grade school, and again, fuzzy memories. So I think walking to school is probably grade school.
Hmm.
I remember walking along the right-hand side of the street on a sidewalk with these giant trees, these big maple trees, going to school. I don't remember anything at all about the school, like what the outside of the building looked like, or I don't recall anything about our teachers. I don't remember any events or activities, playing with the other kids. Those are all just empty for some reason.
Hmm.
Just those the towel and the leaves, walking through the leaves. I don't, and I was going to school. Nothing that I recall coming back from school, going the other way,
Hmm.
and walking in, and I get cookies and milk or something,
Hmm. Hmm.
with mom welcoming me with open arms. I was an only child at the time, and those were the days, and. So I don't recall any of that kind of stuff.
What
So it
do you know what town this was, Bill? Or
probably well, it was in Iowa, and I think it was the second. We did two towns in Iowa. I think Cherokee
oh,
was the
you're
second town.
you're
Probably
kind of you're kind of breaking up, Bill.
Oh, you know what? I'm back from the phone again. It's that's probably better now.
Yeah, oh yes, much better. What and so
Yeah,
what? It wasn't clear what town you were talking about.
probably Cherokee
Cherokee.
is the
Oh,
one
okay.
that probably is there. Sioux City, um, it was where Pat was born, and I believe that's true. And I don't think Pat was around. No, she was around some of the time. I do have faint memories of Grandma Troutman visiting us, and somehow there was a basement. I think the washing machine was down in the basement.
Hmm.
There was a door from the kitchen, as I recall, that led down to the basement. And I think Pat got through that door and fell down the
Oh my
stairs. And
gosh.
that was I remember vaguely the feeling of catastrophe and so forth.
Yeah.
Turned out that it was certainly scary, but it wasn't catastrophic,
Hmm.
thank heavens. Uh, so I do have faint memories of Pat being the early years. So I'd be about 5 or 6 at that
Uh-huh.
in that range,
Yeah.
certainly. And I don't recall specifically anything about the second grade. I think when we moved to Oregon from Iowa, that was our next stop was Oregon from Iowa. Uh, that I went to, excuse me, I went to Edison Edison School. Edison School, by the way, is still in Eugene, and it's still a good-looking building. It's brick, and it seems like it's really been well maintained. The
Hmm.
landscaping looks good. There's some Google Map pictures of it that look quite attractive. I think I started in the third grade when we moved there. We moved around December, I think it was. So I might have got out of school and then resumed school when we got settled in Oregon.
Huh.
I have slightly better memories of school in Edison. This would probably be me walking from the house that's on University, and possibly that little what we call a garage of walking to Edison School. It's certainly within walking distance. Uh, but things I remember about the school is not the classrooms so much as they had a school carnival, and I still absolutely love the idea of school carnival.
Mhm.
Don't have the opportunity to go to very many of them anymore, but I remember a thing where they had sort of a blanket over a clothesline sort of thing, and you had these poles with strings tied to them and a clothespin at the end, and you'd put this clothespin at the end of the string over this blanket, and there'd be a tug on the string, and then you pull it out like you were fishing, and there would be some little treasure attached by the clothespin, and that was we had tickets. We bought little big tickets like we used to get from movie theaters,
Uh-huh.
and you'd hand in some, one or more of those things for the fish pond thing. It's the only fish pond's the only thing I remember specifically. Oh, except that there was a big field at Edison School, and someone had a Jeep, and you could go on a Jeep ride
Hmm.
on the school property, and this guy motored around a bit, and you get a Jeep ride. So there was some number of people in this Jeep, and there was sort of bumpy ridges, little ridges, and so forth.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, but that's just about all I remember with Edison.
Bill,
But from there, go ahead.
do you remember, did you say you don't remember walking to or from Edison? That was to you.
No, I don't. I don't have a memory of the path or anything. As a matter of fact, I ought to look at a Google map and see from, let's say, the house on University, how would I probably walk to that school? That might trigger a memory, possibly,
Uh-huh.
but I can't come up with anything of like walking maybe by myself or with other kids in the neighborhood. Nothing like that, oddly enough.
Uh-huh.
I don't think we had a car at the time. Certainly, it
No.
wasn't driven to school. So it would be a walk, and Mom would be home with Pat, and because Pat was pretty young at that time,
Yeah.
uh, not going to school at all.
So how old were you, Bill?
Well, third grade, I'd be about 8 years old, I
Eight,
think.
third grade? Oh, third grade. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think Edison was third grade, I think, and then we moved to 23rd Street, and then at that place, then I walked to Francis Willard, just down Jefferson, and made a right at some point, and uh, ended up at Francis
Mm.
Willard. I do recall walking with Pat. Pat went to Francis Willard first grade, I believe, or just a little bit until Adams School opened up, and then she went to Adams School.
Uh-huh.
But I do remember walking across the bridge that was across the Amazon Creek, and that the bridge had sort of walks, say like sidewalks, I guess, beside the street, and these were wide, maybe 6 or so inch wide planks that you walked on, and they had little cracks, maybe half-inch wide, and Pat could look through those cracks. She told me later that looking through those cracks was kind of a scary
Oh.
experience.
Hmm.
It seemed dangerous walking across that.
Yeah.
But I don't. But those are hearsay memories. Those are not what I remember. What I remember in the Amazon Creek was they had some tadpoles. Bullfrog tadpoles are huge,
Uh-huh.
and and I remember being able to look over the rail and down in the water, you could see those guys swimming around in that water, or you could get down closer to the water. The kid at that age, I think, would be attracted to all that water.
Yeah.
Go down to closely examine the tadpole. I don't remember ever catching any of them, but just seeing the walk. Strikes me that it's a pretty decent walk from the 23rd Street house to Wilson. Excuse
Yeah.
me, Francis Willard.
Yeah. And that's
Francis Willard have as old enough have better memories of it. I remember the playground. They had quite a bit of playground equipment there, monkey bars and teeter totters and a merry-go-round, and there was the typical what well, at least at the time was a typical playground
yeah.
sort of thing.
I think probably today's view would be something of a potential death trap, and I'm surprised that we didn't lose about a quarter of the students due to fatal accidents on the monkey bars or something like that.
Yeah. And Francis Willard was where what we call the new library, where Pat worked at the
Yeah,
library. Yeah.
that's right. 13th and I think it's 13th and Olive. It's
Uh-huh.
on the corner of 13th and Olive, and it was a pretty good walk.
Yeah.
I I recall walking back from Francis Willard, and where possible, on occasion, walking through the alleys. The alleys were always much more interesting than the sidewalks, I guess.
Hmm.
I recall finding some iris that had been dug up and taking that had been dug up, and my opinion was they were no longer wanted, and I took a few of them and took them back to the 23rd Street house and planted them, and that was that. It was always fun to find little treasures uh, and plant them.
Oh, I bet.
Um, I have, and I know I went from probably, I suspect, at least fourth, fifth, and sixth at Francis Willard. But the only class that I have much of a memory of is, I think it was the sixth grade class. The teacher's name, I believe, was Miss Baker. Miss Baker was what I guess at the time was sort of a stereotype grade school teacher. Rather not very tall and a little bit wide, but she did one thing that I will bless Miss Baker forever, and that is that once, I think it was, she read a chapter of a book called The Secret Garden, and I am still just enthralled with that story.
Oh.
And it's about a little girl that was in India, and typhoid fever came through, and her parents both died, and she ended up going to a house in England, a big old house, and there was her uncle lived there. She stayed with her uncle, but the uncle was a very depressed person. His wife had died, and it was about there was a young boy. The uncle had a boy, so that would what make them cousins, I guess. And how she was a cranky, selfish, really an unpleasant little girl, and so was the boy. They got together and they discovered a garden that was sealed off behind walls, and they started to rehabilitate that garden, and they were also rehabilitating themselves. Of course, they didn't know that at the time, but it was just, and I didn't understand the story very well. Again, sixth grade, what could I figure out? Um, that's one thing I remember about Miss Baker. So I bless the memory of Miss Baker for that story.
Oh, her name was Miss Baker?
Miss Baker, yeah, yeah. Uh, that's that's what I remember about Francis Willard.
So that was sixth grade for you.
Well, probably at least fourth, fifth, sixth, and then uh, oh, I just got a present from somebody out here. I think I'll leave it out for the time being. I have no idea what it is. Great big box. Oh, it's from the post office. Huh. Um, so that was grade school. And uh, between the sixth grade and the seventh grade would be junior high school for me, and that would be at Woodrow Wilson. We moved to Jefferson Street. Oh, I may have to. Oh, it's another box. Okay. Oh, oh no. exciting things are happening uh, here.
Or you're getting deliveries?
Getting deliveries,
You,
yes.
we can pause this tape. Do you want to pause it?
I he's doing a fine job without my help.
Oh, okay.
Um, so
Uh,
that gets me through grade school, I
uh,
think. But you have some
yeah,
questions.
yeah. Quick question. Is there a now? Pat went to Francis Willard with you for a unknown number of years or time, and then she went to Adams. Is there a reason that you didn't also switch over to Adams School? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know. Never even thought about it. That is a good question. Pat was in the first grade, uh, and I was in the sixth grade. I was 5 years ahead of her, and so it could be that I was on the verge of moving away from Adams. Maybe they were ramping up Adams School more slowly, and so people went in. So you went to Adams also
Yeah.
and switched over, but where? So okay, that would be Pat. You would follow then some years later. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You wouldn't really know whether Adams was ramping up slowly. When you first went to Adams, you were what, in the first grade? What grade were you
Yeah.
in?
I went to Adams first through sixth grade.
First, and by that time they were probably in full operation. By
Yes,
that time,
I
even
assume
if
so.
even if they ramped up slowly when Pat started,
Yeah.
they would be fully operational by the time you arrived. Yeah, that okay. We'd have to talk to Pat about that. Um, yeah, and as a matter of fact, I think Pat, for only part of a year, her first year in school, I think, is when we went together to Francis Willard, and like half a year. And so the
Oh,
second half, if I'm right, the second half of her school year was at Adams,
yeah. And
I
since
think.
and since you were in sixth, you would have then moved on to seventh, which is what we call
Junior,
junior high or middle school.
the junior, yeah, what later was improved to be middle school.
Middle school. Yeah.
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think so. So that's the grade school things. You'd ask what might be a typical day. And gosh, I am just having a terrible time remembering what would be typical. Uh, I don't even, well, in so it would be centered on the 23rd Street house, and Pat and I shared a bedroom during that time, and that of course was a pretty small house that we had. What I had for breakfast, gosh, I don't know. The only breakfast I remember was on University Street. It was Cheerios, and I remember for some reason, for some reason, I remember the Cheerios
Uh-huh.
swimming around in a bowl.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have early on. We didn't have a refrigerator at Jefferson, and excuse me, 23rd Street, and so Um, I don't know when we got it, at what year. Pat's so much better at this than I am.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but I recall at one time the milk had soured, and there
Oh no.
and it didn't taste good. I remember shoveling more sugar on it. And couldn't figure out why we couldn't get it to taste right. It's funny, it's a little insight into problem solving when you don't know very much, like when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Um, your solutions, are actually not unreasonable solutions, but they don't work very well because you don't know enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And they say life's hard, especially if you're stupid. And it's kind of a cruel way to say it, but there's a point there
Uh-huh.
that say people who maybe don't have much life experience or on the second the bottom half of the IQ test stuff or something like that could really struggle with life. It seems to me, whereas people on the other side, higher up, might have an easier time dealing with it to avoid see problems coming and avoid them.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, that experience with Cheerios and sour milk and sugar perhaps could be a lesson.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do you
but
re-
but but getting dressed, I just don't recall anything special about getting dressed.
uh-huh.
Of course, the weather there in Eugene was wet, and so I must have had some kind of protection to march off to let's say Francis Willard. It was a lot of blocks. It must have
Yeah.
been 10 or 12 blocks
Yeah.
to walk,
Quite
I
a way.
suppose. Quite a ways, enough to get good and wet.
Do you recall a favorite subject in school that you had in grade school?
No, I don't remember anything special. The only thing special was that once a chapter a day of The Secret Garden.
Secret Garden.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I could recommend. I don't know that how some stories really affect one person and not so much somebody else. Uh, you might not be as thrilled about the story as was, still am actually. But they've made some movies of the Secret Garden, and if
Yes.
you ever have run out of Godzilla movies to watch, you might try the Secret Garden, and I don't know. I think it's a charming story. I think
Uh-huh.
so.
Yeah.
You might put that tuck that away somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh, and I suppose I walked up on 23rd Street to Jefferson and turned left and walked down Jefferson uh, to as the principal way that I uh, that, but again I don't have any pictures of that,
Uh,
with the exception of walking through alleys on occasion when I had the chance, seeing and finding treasure along the way.
yeah.
But the path, gosh, I don't. And getting home from school, one of my favorite things, but I associate it more with Jefferson Street, is getting an orange and cutting it into six like a pie. I
Uh-huh.
look down at an orange and cutting it into six pieces.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that would be an after-school snack. I just love that. I still like it that way.
Uh-huh. Huh.
Yeah. But if I can believe the pictures that we have, I think all of us did a fair amount of reading. So I could see reading on Jefferson Street. Uh, I guess for birthday, I got a book about some artist's conception of what various planets would look like. It's probably hopelessly wrong because they were just guessing at the time. We didn't have any real knowledge other than with Earth telescopes
Uh-huh.
what planets look like. Um, I think actually the artist name was Willie Ley, Ley, I think, and uh, had all these photographs, and I recall really enjoying that book. Whoever got me that book did a great job. It was just really on track. I guess that was some of the early indications of my interest in technology and led to engineering.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but reading had yeah, I recall reading a lot. Um, when I was in the sixth grade, I think they did some sort of measurement at school, discovered I probably needed to get some glasses, and Mom took me to an optician, I guess, and getting those glasses. And I remember coming out when I finally had glasses on, and this would be probably winter sixth grade, and I could see twigs on the trees.
Oh.
I could look up and see the little twigs on trees, and over time, I presume over time, I couldn't see those. I'd sort of forgotten what a
Oh,
tree looked like.
yeah. Uh-huh.
But that was my normal. And and I remember just being and walking down. It was a converted house where the where I got my glasses, and walking down the front steps and looking at the those trees with the twigs on them, and it was quite a revelation.
Oh, I bet. Huh.
Now, now
You have mentioned going to the library, the Carnegie, I think Carnegie
the
Library.
Carnegie, yeah, the one on
Yeah.
Willamette Street on
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Yeah,
Do you,
probably 10th, 11th, something like that.
yeah, we have we found a picture of that, so we'll have to include that. But
Yes, yes.
do you recall anything about going to the library by any chance?
The library had steps going up to it, and it was a sort of a gray stone building, uh, and it had a basement. So you walked up 4 or 5 steps to get into the front through the front door, and then a few more steps to get up to the I guess main, and that's where you could check out, uh, take your book and check it out.
Yeah.
The librarian or librarians could be. Uh, my favorite part of the library was on the basement, I guess, the lower floor.
Yeah, and Bill, you're
They
kind of
had
you're breaking up a little
Oh,
bit here.
I've leaned back again. You gotta remind me of that. I'll relax and be chatting away here. Um, yeah. You probably have to yell at me on occasion. The basement had kids stuff. They were building little things like model airplanes and so forth. I was interested in building model airplanes and so forth, beginning more and more, and maybe getting a little older and able to do that better. And so there were books about activities that mostly it was aimed at boys, at the ones I saw, and got interested in just building little things. I think on Jefferson on 23rd Street, I think I put together a small model of boat. I remember painting it a pretty maroon color, the same color that Ginger's painted, by
Oh,
the way,
really?
I
Oh,
think. Very close to it. Odd. I just thought of that and hadn't thought of that.
hmm.
But I, and uh, so I think there's a fair amount of building model things and so forth.
Uh-huh.
Playing on weekends, playing outside a lot. I think kids played outside a lot. I didn't play with Pat very much, and the only thing that seems to survive of that time is when I was really mean to her. I think the story about I tied a rope to a bucket that slung over a limb and put Margaret in the bucket. I hoisted her up over a limb of an apple tree, a big apple tree in the backyard of 23rd Street house,
Hmm.
and lifted her up and scared her. And now I feel really bad about that because she's such a good person.
Yeah.
And how could I be so mean? But that's the way it was. I probably couldn't apologize enough for being that jerk. I guess that's what big brothers occasionally are.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was Pat. You said that you
yeah,
hoisted up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at the time, that's known as Patsy, and so she was in this bucket, just a normal metal bucket, and although I don't remember doing it, unsurprisingly, but I believe that it really did happen. We had a dog, Scotty, and we have some pictures of Scotty, and Scotty adopted us. I think that he adopted us when we were living in that garage, or
half a year or so after leaving the University Street house.
Uh-huh.
They sold that house, and we had to find another place to rent.
Uh-huh.
But I think Scotty adopted us at that time and went with us to 23rd Street.
Yeah.
So Scotty was at 23rd Street for some length of time. He was a mature dog when he adopted us,
Uh-huh.
and he died there uh, at the 23rd Street house. I think Mom and Pat had gone to Nebraska somehow, maybe by train or something, and I stayed home with Dad, and I think he died during that time. I buried Scotty. I think I buried him in the backyard of the 23rd Street house. So Scotty's grave is, I presume, is still there.
I'll be darned. Back in the
Yeah.
backyard of the 23rd Street house.
In the backyard, yep, backyard on the west side of the property. As I remember, there was a tool shed that was there, had a lot of stuff stored in it, just I don't rakes and so forth stored in this tool shed, and it was close to where that tool shed was located. That tool shed might still be there. There's some evidence to suggest that there's something like that is still there.
Uh-huh.
Hard to see on Google, but maybe it's still there.
Hmm.
The house is still there.
I'll be darned.
But playing outside, had a friend named Chuck Hodges that lived down 23rd Street to the west on the other side, on the north side of the street. 23rd Street house is on the south side. And so Chuck and I played a lot. Chuck had a big sand pile in his yard driveway, at the end of the driveway, that his dad dumped it for some reason. We had a great time building, you might say, I guess it'd be sand castles there.
Uh-huh.
And in the summertime, say around there, you could buy fireworks, firecrackers, and whatnot. And so we'd build sand castles and poke a firecracker into one of the walls and blow up the walls a bit with those firecrackers. And he also had apple trees, a number of apple trees in his yard. They all were wormy. The trees were straight, and so all of them were wormy. But take a stick and poke a hole in the apple, poke a firecracker into the hole, and we had these rubber tire, inner tube tire slingshots, the Y-shaped piece of stick,
Uh-huh.
and inner tube for the elastic, and then it was a two-person operation where you this firecracker in the apple in the slingshot.
Uh-huh.
Pulled it way back, and somebody would, close to your ear, I suppose, somebody would light the fuse on the firecracker and then wait until it burned down quite a ways, and then launch that apple into the air. And if you did it right, the firecracker would explode, blowing the apple smithereens.
Uh-huh.
And it's really, really. You look back at it and say, how does the kids survive with that? Most of us did,
Uh-huh.
but getting a firecracker that close to one's face strikes me now as not being real bright.
Yeah.
But those kind of troubles. Oh, and kites. The little mom and pop grocery store down on 19th and Jefferson.
Yeah.
In the summertime, they would have kites for sale down there. And I remember it was a dime for one of those diamond-shaped kites that you could unfold, spread out. And so Chuck and I would buy those kites and hide them there at the neighborhood. There was enough room at the time. That was fun summertime. Got a bicycle. I think I bought a bicycle from Chuck, and I don't know where I got the money. I don't recall ever getting a house. But for some reason, maybe I pumped it off ad. I don't know where that came from. We bought a bicycle. I don't recall the amount. $5 sticks in my mind. That seemed kind of expensive
Uh-huh.
for a bike at the time. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. And so riding around town to the library and in downtown Eugene.
Bill, you're kind of breaking up a bit here.
I'm leaning forward this time. I don't know how guilty. I'll lean a little further forward.
Okay, yeah, that's much better. Huh.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. I don't understand why that would matter, but obviously it does.
So,
So riding Eugene on that bicycle, and sometimes by myself,
uh-huh.
sometimes with Chuck Hodges. I think Chuck Hodges could have been an evil influence on me. I have a feeling that that he was a little rougher character than I was. I think not awful. I mean, he didn't rob banks or anything like that, but
Uh-huh.
still,
Uh-huh.
uh, his home life was different than what the home life that I had.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Did you go to school together?
I don't remember him at school. Like we didn't walk together to school that I remember.
Uh-huh.
I think we were the same age. I think. So good question, and I don't have an answer. The answer I just gave you it doesn't sound right, but I think it is right.
Yeah.
That, the things we did together was playing around in the neighborhood or riding our bikes around, stuff like that. One thing but I think I did this by myself too, was to on Saturday mornings at the McDonald Theater, they had show together kids Saturday matinee, and they'd have a few cartoons. They have a floor show, a stage show where kids would come up. There'd be bubble gum blowing contests and other exciting things like that. An MC up the stage, and then after that was done, I think you'd sing a song called "Hail, Hail, the Gang's All Here."
Yeah.
I think that happened there. There'd be a few cartoons. There'd be an exciting cowboy movie, probably. I think it was Cowboy as a Rule. Things like that. And as I recall, that was like 25 cents to go to at a couple hours worth of entertainment there in that audience full of screaming kids. What fun of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if kids, I doubt if young kids have that kind of fun. Maybe they're having fun, but I don't think that kind of fun is currently done. And I don't know. I can look back at that with some fondness. I'd ride my bike. The amazing thing is they had a bicycle stand out I guess beside McDonald's. Parked my bike at that bicycle stand, and the amazing thing is my bicycle would still be there at the end of that 2-hour show.
Uh-huh.
And again, the culture perhaps has changed so much in those years. Looking back at it, maybe it's with rose-colored glasses, but it seems like a happier time in many ways than what I think kids are facing today. When I drive around at times when I think kids ought to be out, I would expect kids out playing. Seldom are they out playing, and even at the park, where they have playground equipment and so forth, you don't see kids out playing. I suppose maybe the electronics, home, TV, stuff like that, is keeping them inside.
Yeah. So this would be around what, 50, 52, 53, perhaps?
Let's see. Let's say it would be fifth grade. So fifth grade, I'd be 12, I guess. Is that right? Yeah, about 12. Say 12, so that'd be 1950.
About 1950. Yeah.
Let's say that's close, I think.
Yeah. And you said you bought you think you bought the bike from Chuck Hodges? Is that?
Chuck Hodges. is. I think
Yeah.
that's the way I remember it. Yeah, yeah.
You had mentioned riding the bicycle to the swimming pool, I think, didn't you?
Yes, in the summertime, one of the favorite things. Glad you mentioned that. One of my favorite things was there's a swimming pool that they built. That's well, roughly 16th and Jefferson's. It was slightly to the west of the 16th and Jefferson intersection. It's no longer there. Strangely enough, you wouldn't think a swimming pool would disappear, but this one did.
Hmm.
Uh, but it was, and I never took swimming lessons. Just kind of learned to dog paddle and developed over lots and lots of swimming. I think it was a dime to go swimming, and I'd ride a bicycle. I'd wrap a swimming suit up in a towel, and I had two bars in the bicycle that I had, and I could kind of jam that rolled up swimming towel and swimming trunks in between those bars that I didn't have to hold on to it, and ride down Jefferson Street to the swimming pool and spend the afternoon swimming or laying on the warm cement, thawing out and learning how to swim, and just tons and tons of exercise. I think I have really good memories of that swimming pool. I was sad to see it gone. Uh, Surprised me when I pulled back to a place where I remembered it being. It was just an empty, not even a hole in the ground.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of sad. It's seeing things that were such fun disappearing was remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you walked in the door. There were some teenagers, probably high school age kids working there, and you give them their dime, and they'd give you a little thing like a safety pin, but it had a bigger, bigger thumbnail tag on it with a number associated with the basket, and you would change your clothes, go off to for the guys, go off to the right, and change clothes, and put it in the basket that had a number on it that matched the number that you had on your little safety pin thing. Pin that to your swim trunks, and then when you were ready to leave, you went back to a window and turned in your safety pin thing, and they gave you your basket with gave you your clothes. I think they kept the basket, and uh, uh, so they had a pretty good arrangement there.
Uh-huh.
How that all worked. They at the entrance to the off to the side to the entrance, they had a snack bar. They're also staffed by high school kids, and you could buy candy bars and other treats.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
There. That was neat.
Yeah.
That was fun.
You know,
Uh,
as I recall, you would when you walked in, there was the like you said, the desk, and then or the counter, and then to the right
the counter.
was the boys, and to the left was the girls, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
You,
And changing places on either side. I think it was sort of symmetrical there.
yeah.
And then you go take a shower, rinse off, and then go splashing around.
Yeah.
They had a couple of diving boards at the deep end, and I remember trying to go off that high diving board. The first time I did it, I didn't have the courage to jump off of it, and I had to go humiliated and had to creep down the ladder
Oh
to
no.
do it.
Oh no.
I got braver over time,
Yeah.
but I did not display a lot of bravery initially.
Yeah. It was a long ways down.
It was a very long ways down. You know, one of the things that made when I again, maybe this is my technical inclination, but if you're standing say on the deck there by the swimming pool and you look up at that swimming pool, that the diving board rather, you had what maybe your eyes were about say roughly 5 feet off the ground, and so it didn't look all that high.
Uh-huh.
So what you did was the height you subtracted the fact you were 5 feet closer to where the diving board was.
Uh-huh.
But you climb up there, you're now 5 feet higher than what the diving board actually is. So, but I said, why does it look so much higher?
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, it makes perfect sense that it would do that. Of course, it looked higher.
Yeah.
You know, the appearance was such that uh, that it was much higher when you were standing on the end of that diving board with
Yes.
nothing around you.
Yeah. Do you recall? I know one of the worst things that could happen to a kid, but we loved seeing it, was a kid doing a belly flop
Oh,
off the.
oh, well, it could be dangerous to do that. You know, you're moving at a reasonably good velocity. You jumped off the high board. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but there were things I think called a cannonball when you jump off and you would you go, your head was uppermost and sort of hang on, curl up in a ball,
Yeah.
grasp your knees, and then make a sort of a ball
Yeah.
and a big splash and stuff. That was fun to
Yeah.
do. To yeah, that was a lot of.
You mentioned your love for carnivals. Do you recall going to any of the Lane County Fair carnival fairs
Oh
or anything?
gosh, the yes. Look forward to the fair. Um, I let's see. There's a few memories. I remember for some reason I remember going more often than not by myself. I don't know why that. I'm not sure that's true. It might be that I simply remember those things better
Uh-huh.
than when I went with people. But do you remember a carnival ride where it looks like it was a tall thing, maybe 20 feet off the ground, and then there was this arm that would rotate, uh, vertically rotate. Um, and on the ends of those arms were two bullet-shaped
Oh, yes. Yeah.
compartments. I forget what they call it, the
The
hammer.
hammer.
Maybe
Yeah.
maybe that was it. I hadn't thought of that forever. I went on that with mom.
Oh my
Holy Mary.
gosh. Really?
And I hated it. It couldn't stop fast enough for me. And she was just howling,
Mom was?
yelling.
Mo-
Yeah,
oh,
she was having a marvelous time.
wonderful.
That was
That's
neat.
wonderful.
That was so, that was so neat. I remember going with Dad one time, and they had the side what the various concessions, I think they called them. I think that's what they call them. And there was one concession where you had about three softballs or balls the size of softballs, and they had this like a table-like arrangement, and you would throw these three balls, I think all at the same time, onto this table-like thing. It was like a tic-tac-toe arrangement, and there were sort of holes where the balls would rest in, roll around and rest in those areas. And it basically was something of a gambling type of an arrangement. And I recall Dad spending something like $20 on this. And that was a lot of money at that time.
Yeah.
Uh, where and it seemed like Dad was getting more and more agitated because he wasn't winning, and that's a fairly powerful memory I have of Dad. I've always been wondering whether Dad might have had a slight compulsive gambling uh, tendency to him. He loved going to Reno, I know, like when they lived in Ashland,
Uh-huh.
and so that was. That was a fun thing. I think Mom went with him, although she claims, and I suspect it's true, that she wasn't personally that interested in going. She just went to keep him probably moderate solvent or something.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But but I remember it was disturbing to me. This is not I guess a pleasant memory. It's sort of a disturbing memory to me Dad seeming like he's out of control, and dads aren't supposed to be out of control.
Yeah.
And I think I might have been in grade school at that time, and I saw that happening. And and again, it's a fairly somewhat faint memory. This might be, I don't know how valid this memory is, but it was some kind of a game, and he was losing money and was getting agitated about it.
Do you
So,
and you do not recall the game itself, or?
well, I just described it as best I can. I don't know of any terrible. I'm not that familiar with the concession type games, but it was. It seemed like you rolled these balls and they randomly selected like maybe the hole that it went into had a number associated with it, and the number was supposed to total up. Three balls were supposed to selected numbers that added up to perhaps like within a range, greater than some little number and smaller than some bigger number, maybe. And if you did that, you won. And if you didn't do that, you lost. And but that's about is a pretty faint memory of the mechanics of the game. My recollection is Dad's getting. I think it was that about.
Huh. I'll be darned.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know that those kind of games exist anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. Huh. Yeah, I vaguely remember they had games there that had horses, like tin horses running across the.
Yes, yes. There would be a bench and and a board there in front of you where everybody could see. There might be, well, like 8 people or so could be at this sort of this counter that you were at,
Yeah.
and yeah, and so you were the jockey, I guess, for the horse or something, uh, and I don't know. I wonder how it worked.
Yeah. Do you
Probably to the advantage of the concession owner, I suspect.
uh-huh. You mentioned going by yourself or maybe occasionally with mom and dad. Do you recall
Yeah.
any foods that you got there or any
Uh, Cotton candy
cotton
is
candy?
what I remember.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I remember. I thought the machine that makes cotton candy was a fascinating machine. I might have liked watching the machine more than the candy itself.
Uh-huh.
There was an element there, though. I don't remember food specifically, but they had the commercial displays. And there was a building where the people were selling these wonderful knives that were just amazingly sharp and so forth. And there was a fellow that was putting on a display and had this hatter, I guess is what it's called, and it was just fun to watch. The people would he'd be up on he had like a microphone that he could an amplifier so we could be heard, and there would be maybe 10, 15 people standing around, and he was showing them how marvelous these knives were, and then of course they were for sale.
Uh-huh.
And I loved the commercial part of that. I don't know they do that anymore. It might be the internet's taken over that role, but I love seeing those things. They also had the political parties and the Coast Guard might be there and stuff like that. I just loved that building. Those commercial foods, I guess they would be
Uh-huh.
called.
Yeah.
But food, no, I don't. I remember seeing them. Various church organizations might have chili, for example, and they set up a stand where you could buy and sit there and have a bowl of chili or chicken and dumplings or stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And those are fun to see. It always looks so yummy. I don't know that I ever wanted to waste my money on anything like that. I wanted to waste it on the rides. But
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Boy, what?
So, was anything else comes to mind that maybe that I could cover, or maybe it's getting close to the time we need to?
Oh, well, let me look. Well, let's see. It's 11:48. We've been chatting for about an hour, actually. Believe it or not.
Good heavens! Good heavens! Have you been able to? Has your computer been able to save all of it? Do you think?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I could. We
Okay.
could go on for quite a bit longer, but
Oh,
if you want to break here, we can certainly break at an hour, or we can.
yeah. This strikes me as actually being a fairly good place to break. You know, it always seems like there's more that could be said. Although, because every time you mention something, it says, "Oh yeah, I should have remembered that." And that's the way it is with school and the fairgrounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
but we've covered it pretty well, I think.
okay. Yeah. Well, the next time then I'll stop you here in just a second. The next time I'm hoping we can talk more about perhaps the your junior high and then into high school, and also include a couple of other things, and that would be perhaps on separate recordings would be the Ford, the go-kart,
Mm-hmm.
and your trips on occasion. I think you went down to San Francisco on occasion.
With
So
Gary.
with Gary, yeah,
With Gary, when I was in, we were in school.
yeah,
Um, we went down a couple of years, which was a lot of fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah. I forgot about that. That's good. Yes,
a-
that'd be fun.
and then from going on from school, perhaps your college years would be interesting for me anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those sort of things. So, but I'll stop it here, and we've been talking for about an hour.